Edgeworth.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Liberal Democrats are not in favour of updating the Constitution to create a leaders' update. Cabinet meetings are already held in public and there's no need for the same claptrap and lines to take from Kim McGuinness's office to be repeated again in these meetings at the expense of important business and debate. Of course, the leader is too weak to take comments, questions or challenge at cabinet meetings or allow his cabinet colleagues to do so. This isn't an adequate replacement for allowing scrutiny in already public meetings. The purpose of this change is clearly self-indulgent and is designed solely to help the leader convince his Labour colleagues sitting behind him, none of whom actually support him, about what job he's doing since he was handed the leadership, on the basis that he's a Starmer and McGuinness yes man prepared to defend the indefensible. It would be more useful for the Constitution to be changed so that we can have a 10-minute speech from Graham Miller so we know what the Labour group is really thinking.
So on item 3, I believe Councillor Mullen would like to speak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to also request a separate vote on this item as well. Can I start by thanking the new panel members for what is undoubtedly a much more thoughtful and considered report than what we used to get in previous years. I'd said to them over a number of years that there was work to be done in terms of asking people who receive special responsibility allowances what they actually do, and that never happened until this year when people were interviewed and had input into the process. And thank the new chair in particular for her willingness to do that and to pull this report together. Our group's submission to the panel didn't propose any increases to the allowances, instead it proposed cuts to allowances. In particular, we have concerns about vice chairs and the lack of actual activity that is defined for vice chairs. We don't think they need to be given an allowance full stop, with the exception of the area committees which have a defined purpose. But there could be an arrangement whereby vice chairs get a part of the allowance of the chair when the chair is absent from meetings. We welcome the formalising of the deletion of the cabinet deputies. It was the right move when the new leader of the council got rid of those, and it's good to see that they won't be coming back anytime soon. And similarly to what I said to Councillor Edgeworth, I'm very grateful for suggestions that I should be paid more, but honestly, it's fine. I really, really don't deserve it.
Thank you. Councillor McDonough.
Madam Mayor, everything I was going to say has already been said, so please move on.
I believe on item 5, Councillor O'Brien would like to speak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's just to say that the broadening of the council tax support scheme is good. I really do appreciate that, given the fact that some of my residents are struggling. However, there is a however in it. The way councils act when trying to receive council tax monies from people who are barely earning an income is pretty disgraceful. It's not me who says this, it's Martin Lewis. The way they act no better than loan sharks in some cases, sending bailiffs round, is pretty despicable. You don't know where I'm going with it, but allow me to continue. I hope this council doesn't do that. I hope this council has a more understanding tone. In previous iterations, Graham used to say it would be understanding, it would be necessary for people to be able to work out negotiated settlements. I hope that continues, and well done. I'll give you your due.
Leader, do you wish to exercise your right of reply?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Take them item by item. Item 1, welcome Anthony's remarks. I think it is an opportunity to hear a bit more broader in a full public setting about things that's happening not just in the city, but regionally and nationally that we're plugged into. So I think it's a great opportunity. I will have to have one caveat, maybe is that aspiration you set out in terms of the delivery of the latest update might start next month. Anthony, I'll just say that. In terms of Paul's comments on that, it's just the same old story, Madam Mayor. The Lib Dems are desperate not to have the Labour group, the Labour Council, talk about the good things that's happening in the city. They want to stifle debate at every opportunity. They're terrified of the good news stories that this Labour group and Labour Council is bringing forward. So that's not unexpected. In terms of item 3, it's an independent panel that decides on the allowance scheme. If members have any comments or questions on that, I would direct them to the panel to plead their case, and these people who dedicate the times to come up with the scheme will pay due attention to them. And what about the turn-up of the books, Madam Mayor? The turn-up of the meeting, Councillor O'Brien praising this Labour Cabinet. There we are. I'll just say thank you very much for that, Stephen. It's a priority of mine that some of the most vulnerable people in the city are protected, and this is just one way of doing it, so I welcome them comments, and I would ask Council to accept all 5 reports of the Cabinet, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I have received a request for separate votes on recommendation 1 and 3, so we'll take those first. So the vote first will be on the recommendation 1.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If the officer could open the vote, please.
Madam Mayor, just to clarify, this is vote to accept item 1 of the Cabinet report on the update to the Constitution Council Procedure Rules.
That's correct.
Yeah. Yes. Will we vote that second?
If the officer could close the vote now, please. So there are 50 votes in favour and 11 against, so recommendation 1 is accepted. Now if we could move to the vote on the recommendation 3 in respect of the members' allowances scheme, if the officer could open the vote for that, please. And this is for members to consider whether they accept the recommendation of Cabinet and the Leader. And if the vote could be closed now, please. So 44 votes in favour and 16 against, so the recommendation is accepted.
Do you accept the remaining recommendations on the report of the Cabinet? Great. We now move on to the Leader's update. Leader?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Just let me get myself sorted here. For the keen observer amongst us, Madam Mayor, they'll note that this week marked 8 months since this Cabinet were voted into office by the Council on a vote of 50 votes to 17. So in that 8 months, we have gotten to work on behalf of the city. But in deciding on what I was going to say tonight, Madam Mayor, I reflected on some of the comments that were brought forward in the debate that night when I was elected Leader of the Council, and in particular the comments from Councillor Edgeworth, who said it would be bad for Sunderland and the regional investment prioritised for Tyneside, but it just hasn't been the case, Madam Mayor. Because in that 8 months since we've been in office, Madam Mayor, £42 million boost to Riverside Sunderland has come to the city. £25 million funding for Crownworks Studio. £9.7 million for Made UK that will transform the ability of young people to access the skills for the jobs of the future. And just last week, Madam Mayor, Lisa Nandy, the Secretary of State for Culture, Media and Sport, announced £5 million via the Arts Council because we had an issue with the National Brass Centre. Unfortunately, the University of Sunderland decided to pull out, and the previous Conservative parties in the last elections had the Minister, Lord Whitley Beer, I think he was, asking for funding from the Conservative government to help us protect glassmaking in the city, and it just didn't come. But within 6 months of this Labour government taking over, Madam Mayor, we have £5 million grant, and we can protect the 1,300 years glassmaking history in a brand new facility in the city centre in this city, Madam Mayor. So that's absolutely delighted. So the proof is in the pudding. Sunderland is leading the way in the combined authority, attracted investment from government and across the region, and the bad news from Councillor Edwards just hasn't come to pass. He complained we wouldn't see no new money for Sunderland. I've just set out to Mary Body and how the first funding settlement of this Labour government has wiped out half of our 3-year projected deficit. And with a multi-year settlement to come, an analysis by Sagoma says if they follow the similar funding formulas to this one, that will result in potentially up to £30 million added back into the bottom line of this council, which we'll be able to use to invest in services in this city, Madam Mayor. So absolutely, again, the predictions of the Lib Dems have just hadn't come up. He said we couldn't govern and the Cabinet would be impotent. I stand here, Madam Mayor, with a united group, leading forward and bringing forward plans to drive through the city. Councillor Butler is transforming how we tackle child poverty in this city. Councillor Checker is bringing forward a revolution in how we address antisocial behaviour in the city, Madam Mayor. Councillor Smith has just signed an anti-racism charter with our colleagues in Unison, Madam Mayor. And we have been named by the Sunday Times the UK's smartest city, an area that I'm keen to develop and move forward. Councillor Jones is moving forward with the Sunderland Fuel Fund, an absolutely essential support that we've been able to provide over 5,000 pensioners support with their heating allowance this winter. That wouldn't have been able to happen if it wasn't for the extension of the Household Support Fund and the council support. That's what this Labour Council has done. Councillor Johnson is absolutely driving forward the regeneration plans in this city, bringing them on to the next stage. It has absolutely transformed, working in partnership with some of our housing providers, how we deal with homelessness in the city, Madam Mayor. And Councillor Leonard mentioned earlier how we are changing the world, according to the Sunderland Echo, as we lead our work to tackle net zero and climate issues. So, Madam Mayor, that shows that this Cabinet, that I'm proud to lead, and this Council is working on behalf of the city. So I couldn't be more delighted to see that the doom and gloom, to pinch a phrase from Boris Johnson, the doommongers opposite have been proven impotent, and this Labour government and so this Labour Council and this Labour Cabinet are moving forward at pace to represent and to make this city a greater place. Madam Mayor, just some other issues I just want to touch on briefly. It was an absolute pleasure to welcome the Chancellor of the Exchequer and the Secretary of State for Science, Innovation and Technology to the city on the 12th of December. We hosted Rachel Reeves and Peter Kyle at City Hall. The Chancellor and the Secretary of State saw firsthand how Sunderland is transforming as we walked around the Riverside Sunderland development and had the opportunity to get on site at Culture House. It was great to showcase our Smart Cities programme and share how we are using technology to not only create opportunities and empower communities, but also to deliver vital services to the residents of Sunderland. We talked to the Chancellor and the Secretary of State about a number of proposals and next steps, which I'm keen to bring forward to future leaders' updates and then through Cabinet. We had the amazing news on the 16th of January, Madam Mayor, that Japan Automatic Transmission Company JATCO Limited have created their first European base here in Sunderland, bringing in a £148.7 million investment, will create 183 high-skilled jobs. Madam Mayor, that is on the back of a number of high-ranking CEOs say that the UK is now the second most attractive country for inward investment, and we've seen recently figures that wage growth is outstripping inflation and a dip in inflation. This is a massive vote of confidence in the workers of Sunderland and in the UK economy, headed by the Chancellor of the Exchequer. I'm delighted to offer the hand of friendship to our partners in JATCO and hope that that investment will lead to substantial more jobs on behalf of the people of this city. One of the most rewarding visits I did, Madam Mayor, in recent months was to be at St Peter's Riverside for the unveiling of the Molly statue, a fantastic statue that my good friends, Harry Truman and Mel Spedden, initiated when they were in the Cabinet, Madam Mayor. It depicts Molly, it's effectively the story of Doris Hope, one of the real-life Mollys who, in early 1942, went to work in Greenwells as a shipyard repair. Molly was from Hendon, and she was one of how the women during the war stepped forward, and the Shroptimists who helped bring this project forward. I want to place on record my thanks and appreciation to them, because if it wasn't for them, with the support of the council, in particular Dan Hattle, the officer who's led this, it's a great addition to our Riverside, and it's a great, and I would absolutely, there's a couple of leaflets if anyone's interested, but please have a wander down the Riverside and see that fantastic statue. Other things I want to just touch on, Madam Mayor, I've mentioned briefly, we were named the UK's smartest city. And just actually, I will say a few things on what Anthony mentioned, because there is worries and anxieties that we might need to debate as a council. The government have intimated changes to how devolution would work. They've got the devolution white paper out for consultation now. And we will at some point, as a cabinet, have to form a view on that. I would encourage everyone to play an active part in that consultation. Devolution in our region is just in its infancy. It's only been in operation since May, but I think it's working well. But there is some proposed changes that we're currently working through the detail of now, in particular of planning and how a regional spatial strategy will happen. Again, the issue with Homes England and how that will become more accountable to the regional combined authority. We need to protect our ability as a council to liaise directly with government on issues that affect Sunderland. I chaired a very interesting meeting of the Association of North East Councils last Friday in Enoch, and we are keen as a group of councils to come together to form a special interest group with the Local Government Association, because we're keen as a group of 12 authorities to ensure that our voices are heard directly with the government, and that the dialogue between Whitehall and the regions isn't primarily or directly to the mayor and the mayor and the cabinet. There must be a role for local authorities to play our part in that. So again, that's an issue that I'm watching very closely. And as things come forward, we bring updates and have a conversation at further leaders' updates about that. So, Madam Mayor, again, I've got all kinds of stuff I can talk about, but in the interest of time, I'll just draw it to a close there. I think I'm coming up sharp to me 10 minutes anyway, so I'm more than happy to answer Anthony and Paul's 2 questions now, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Councillor Edgeworth, do you have any questions?
Thanks. When can we get an update from Keir Starmer so we can hear from the organ grinder and not the monkey?
It's got to be related to what's on the report.
Madam Mayor, Councillor Edgeworth can get an update from the Prime Minister at 12 o'clock on a Wednesday.
When can we get an update from Kim McGuinness so we can hear from the other organ grinder and not the monkey?
I think the next cabinet is February the 3rd next week, Madam Mayor. I'm more than happy for Councillor Edgeworth to pop along to South Shields Town Hall and listen to the enthralling debate.
Thank you. Councillor Mullen?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was worried Paul was going to ask my questions, but thankfully they weren't on the list. In relation to the Crownworks studio, can I ask him if any contractors have been appointed, if he has any anxieties about other more negative developments on the Riverside, and if you can outline a timeline for completion of Crownworks?
So at the minute, Madam Mayor, we've got a contractor in place. We're about hopefully get on start and to prepare the site in early February. We're working very closely with private sector partners to bring forward that project as soon as possible. We'll be on site preparing the ground, and then we're working with the private sector to pretty much roll on straight after when the ground's prepared to come on, and hopefully we'll have buildings out the ground very, very soon.
Thank you. Councillor Mullen?
Thank you. And towards the end there, he mentioned the English devolution white paper. Can I ask him to commit to not accepting expanding the council's footprint to meet a 0.5 million resident requirement as is set out in the white paper? And just as a matter of interest, does he intend to respond to the consultation on standards, and can he think of any examples from Sunderland he might feed into it?
The English devolution white paper is quite broad. I'm confident that the reorganisation issue will not affect us in the North East. We're all unitaries at the minute. I think it's more of an issue in two-tier areas where county and districts are merging, so I don't see that impacting on us. As I say, I think our council is relatively well served. It's a good size. But again, this is just a white paper. This is just out for consultation. We'll have to wait and see what makes it into the final bill. In terms of standards, I was at the LGA annual conference in Harrogate in October, I think it was, and it was very, very interesting to hear the Deputy Prime Minister set out her ambitions to give the standards regime in this country much more teeth. Because at the minute, if I'm completely honest, it's not worth the paper it's written on. Councillors can act as they see fit and get away with it. We've seen numerous examples in this council chamber of people effectively taking advantage of a weak system, dragging investigations out for years at a significant cost to the taxpayer. So I've certainly responded to the government's consultation on that. I would ask that there is a much stronger code, a national body with teeth that could sanction councillors which have gone through all due process and all due diligence and appealed and everything, but this would have to be a separate independent body to adjudicate these matters because at the minute we cannot participate in public debate and expect the abuse that some of us receive online if we are standing absolutely acting like children in this chamber to one another. So I would like to see us get our own house in order, but I would absolutely welcome the government's move to strengthen the standards regime because frankly some people in this chamber need a kick up the backside.
Thank you. Just a reminder that agenda item is a new agenda item. It is limited to 2 questions per leader. There was a sneakily one added in there. Just a reminder for the next meeting. Thank you. So the next item tonight is a report of the leader on special urgency decisions. Leader, would you please move the report?
I so move, Madam Mayor.
Deputy Leader, do you second the report?
I second the report, Madam Mayor.
Does Council agree to receive the report? Agree. Thank you. Next we move on to the motions of notice. Music, arts and culture in Sunderland. I call upon Councillor Jones to read and move the motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this motion is for music, arts and culture in Sunderland. So Sunderland is undergoing significant transformation with ambitious and impressive regeneration plans and projects, truly positioning itself as an up-and-coming, exciting and innovative city to live, work and visit. Council notes that it is essential that Sunderland's transformation extends beyond physical redevelopment and must continue to build on its historic and vibrant cultural identity with arts, heritage and music at its core. It is widely accepted that music, arts and culture bring a multitude of social health and well-being benefits and can significantly boost economic prosperity, which undoubtedly can improve the lives of our residents and enhance the city's vibrancy and diversity. However, whilst we know talent is everywhere, opportunity is not. Council recognises the fantastic contribution those involved in the music, arts and cultural sector across the city already make day in, day out, and that Sunderland has a unique opportunity to stand in solidarity with artists and lead the way in fostering a thriving cultural scene. Council, therefore, declares its ongoing support for musical, artistic and cultural development across the city. We'll continue to educate and advocate for support for our arts, music and cultural sector. Commits to ongoing collaboration with local artists, musicians, cultural organisations and stakeholders, including approaches that will train, retain and return our local talents. We'll continue to support our creative industries through collaborating with local businesses to generate jobs and foster a strong creative economy, and welcomes the Secretary of State for Culture, Media and Sport and the Secretary of State for Education's commitments to review the curriculum and to put arts, sport and music back at the heart of our schools and communities. Council requests that the Leader of the Council writes to the Secretary of State for Culture, Media and Sport to invite her to visit Sunderland to see the rich heritage and culture on offer and discuss potential future opportunities for the government to support the music, arts and culture sector in Sunderland. With that, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Elms, do you second the motion?
Yes, I second the motion and reserve the right to speak. Thanks.
Councillor Jones, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. So it gives me great pleasure to bring the first new motion of 2025 to celebrate the best of Sunderland and what our city is about under a Labour government that is already demonstrating a commitment to reversing the rot and decline of the last 14 years. So far, in just over 6 months under this Labour government, we have our local MP Bridget Phillipson, Secretary of State for Education, reviewing the curriculum to ensure that children and young people do not miss out on subjects such as music, art, sport and drama. STEM projects, important as they are not for all, and I'm sure we will agree with Bridget's commitment to opening up music, sport, art and drama to all children and deliver an experience-rich education for all, not just for those whose parents can afford it. And the breakfast clubs, so children can learn on a full stomach, is a welcome addition. Because music, art, sports and cultural education breeds the artists of the future, but also, crucially, it breeds the audiences of the future. We had Secretary of State for Culture, Media and Sports, Lisa Nandy, in the region last week for the Creative Industries Growth Summit, where she promised to bulldoze the barriers that hold back potential and committed to turbocharging the nation's creative industries, be it film, fashion, music, television, theatre or video games. She recognised our rich culture and heritage here in the North East, where she announced 2 major projects for our region, including a Centre for Writing and for our city 5 million for Glassworks Sunderland to ensure we retain our heritage of glassmaking, but also ensuring that our city remains one of the few nationally significant centres of excellence across the UK with specialist facilities to create and to produce glass. There was also a commitment to the North East being a priority region for creative industries with additional funding proposed. And I have no doubt our North East Mayor, Kim McGuinness, who is equally as passionate about our culture, will make sure that the North East stands tall on a national and international stage and ensures that the world knows about our rich cultural offer. So let's talk about Sunderland and how our creative sector can create jobs, attract visitors and create economic prosperity. This is going to be a remarkable year for our city for the right reasons. As mentioned, the government had £5 million committed to Glassworks Sunderland, which will be delivered through Sunderland Culture, along with other projects like Culture Starts, who do amazing work across the city. Last night, the leader and myself attended the beautiful fire station for the launch of the Sunderland Music Strategy, well worth the read, which gives a 5-year comprehensive plan to propel the growth and prosperity of Sunderland's music scene. It really is ambitious, but full of pride and potential. Written by, with and for the people of Sunderland. And it was a remarkable night on every level, none more so because, and I'm delighted to be wearing the t-shirt tonight, that Sunderland is a music city. So it's only the second city in the UK to join the Music Cities network. We've joined cities around the world, as the leader identified earlier, but membership of this network is testimony to the talent, hard work and achievement of everyone working in Sunderland's music sector, some of who are in the room tonight. And this is just the beginning and a signal of more good things to come. And I'd like to place on record as a sincere thank you to everyone that made this happen. June will also see Sunderland launch the Year of Music with multiple music events across the city. We have Culture House opening in the autumn, which will be a powerhouse of creativity and be a place to imagine, play, create, debate and design for tomorrow, to inspire people with the creative ingenuity of art, performance, design and technology, and will empower educators to promote creativity. We had the recent unveiling of the Molly statue to add to Sunderland's sculpture trail from local artist Ron Lawson, and later this year we'll have 2 additional sculptures from world-renowned Ray Lonsdale, both of which I'm sure will attract visitors from near and afar. August will see the opening match of the Women's Rugby World Cup with England playing America, a once-in-a-generation event which will see our city broadcast across the world. Work will commence on the F-Pit Albany Park site in Washington later this year, and we'll also see the transformation of our museum and winter gardens. In November, we hosted 2 excellent nights at the fire station. Firstly, the Culture Spring Awards, which showcased lots of groups' projects that have emerged during the last 10 years through the cultural spring, including little inventors, ukulele players and a cappella singers, and also the North East Cultural Partnership Awards. At both events, I was blown away by the talent we have.
Councillor Jones.
Not only in our
Can I
region,
move an extension to the conclusion of Councillor Jones's remarks, Madam Mayor?
I'll second that, Madam Mayor.
but also in our city. A true reminder of why we need to train, retain and return our city's talents. And whilst I could go on much longer, I am limited for time. So I cannot finish without mentioning Crown Works, which has the potential to make our city the Hollywood of the North, if not the UK. Our city already has so much that is strong, despite what the mood hoovers opposite would like others to think. But it's fair to say culture was not a priority of the past government, who have robbed our children, talents and artists of opportunities. I am confident that under this council and under this government that we will break down those barriers and we will open the doors together. So Madam Mayor, that is why I'm happy to put forward this motion. 2025 is going to be a fantastic year for our city, and I'd ask all members to join me in giving a clap to our local talents, some of who are here and some of who are watching tonight, to show how much we really value their remarkable dedication. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I understand that Councillor Duncan wishes to move an amendment. Councillor
That's correct, Mayor.
Councillor Fagan, would you like to second the amendment?
I'll second the amendment, thank you.
Thank you.
And I'd like to speak to the motion as well.
Councillor Duncan, would you like to speak on the amendment? Would you like to read it out?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, could I say that my reading on things like this is not too good. I had a brain hemorrhage when I was 30, and sometimes my scanning is not so good. So if I double over on some of the letters, I hope you'll give me permission. I'm proposing an amendment to the motion, Music, Arts and Culture in Sunderland. My suggestions are to delete the 5th paragraph and insert, Council recognises the fantastic contribution of those individuals and organisations working in the music, arts, heritage and cultural sector in the City of Sunderland. Council also recognises the long-term and continuing enthusiasm, creativity, knowledge, commitment and experience of the City's voluntary sector organisations who have formed the cultural backbone of the City for so long. Led by their experience, innovation and passion, and in true partnership, the Council believes that Sunderland has a unique opportunity to stand in solidarity with all those involved in the sector and lead the way in fostering a thriving cultural scene. I'm also suggesting delete bullet points 1 to 4 and replace those with declares its commitment to work in partnership with and support for the music, arts, heritage and culture section in the City of Sunderland. Confirm that it will work with stakeholders at all levels to educate and advocate for support for our arts, music, heritage and cultural sectors. Excuse me, Madam Mayor. Strengthened by the combined experience and creativity of all those in the sectors, commit to true partnership with local arts, music, heritage and cultural organisations and stakeholders that include a blend of approaches that will train, retain and grow our independent local organisations and talent pool. Commits to work with and support our creative industries and voluntary sector organisations in the development of innovative sector-led projects that generate jobs and foster a strong creative economy. And delete the final paragraph and replace it with, Council requires that the Leader of the Council writes to the Secretary of State for Culture, Media and Sport to invite her to visit Sunderland to see the full breadth and depth of our rich heritage and culture on offer and openly discuss with the sector leaders future opportunities for the government to support music, arts and culture sectors in Sunderland. And now you're going to want me to read the full thing.
Councillor Duncan, can I just stop you for one moment there? Just while people speak and are reading the motions, especially if they have problems reading out the paragraphs and things, if the council can just remain quiet, please, and just have one voice. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Yes. I just want to clarify, first of all, Councillor Fagan, did you reserve the right to speak?
I think Steve's going to cover it all. Thank you.
Councillor Duncan, would you like to read out the full motion? Thank you.
So, the amended motion now reads, Sunderland is undergoing significant transformation with ambitious and impressive regeneration plans and projects truly positioning itself as an up-and-coming, exciting and innovative city to live, work and visit. Council notes that it is essential that Sunderland's transformation extends beyond physical redevelopment and must continue to build on its history and vibrant cultural identity with arts, heritage and music at its core. It is widely accepted that the music, arts and culture brings a multiple of social, health and well-being benefits and can significantly boost economic prosperity which undoubtedly can improve the lives of our residents and enhance the city's vibrancy and diversity. However, whilst we know talent is everywhere, opportunity is not. Council recognises the fantastic contribution of those individuals and organisations working in the music, arts and heritage sectors and cultural sectors in the City of Sunderland. Council also recognises the long-term and continued enthusiasm, creativity, knowledge, commitment and experience of the City's voluntary sector organisations who have formed the cultural backbone of our city for so long. Led by their expertise, innovation and passion, and in true partnership, the Council believes that Sunderland has a unique opportunity to stand in solidarity with all those involved in the sector and lead the way in fostering a thriving cultural scene. This Council, therefore, one deep breath and carry on, declare its commitment to work in partnership with and support for the music, arts, heritage and cultural sector in the City of Sunderland. Confirm that it will work with stakeholders at all levels to educate and advocate for support for arts, music, heritage and cultural sectors, strengthened by the combined experience and creativity of all those in the sector, commit to true partnership with local arts, music, heritage and cultural organisations and stakeholders that includes a blend of approaches that will train, retain and grow our independent local opportunities and talent pools. Commit to work with and support our creative industry and voluntary sector organisations in the development of innovative, sector-led projects that generate jobs and foster a strong creative economy. Welcome the Secretary of State and Culture, Media and Sport and Secretary of State for Education commitments to review the current curriculum and put arts, sports and music back at the heart of our schools and communities. Council recognises that the leaders of the Council write to the Secretary of State for Culture, Media, Sports and Art. It's like when you come to the final stretch of a race, you get mad, don't you? And sports to invite her to visit Sunderland to see the full breadth and depth of our rich heritage and culture on offer and openly discuss with the sector's leaders future opportunities for the government to support the music, arts, culture and heritage sector in Sunderland. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Would anybody like to speak on the amendment?
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, through you, could
Point
I
of
just...
order, Madam Mayor. Under Section 4, Part 1, Section 13, could I request on item L a 5-minute adjournment to read a paper copy to see if there's any of that we can incorporate into our amendment. Thank you.
Oh, happy for a 5-minute adjournment? Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree.
Can members please be back in the room and seated for 1:45? Thank you. Thank you and welcome back. I believe that Councillor Duncan would like to withdraw the amendment. Is that correct?
That's correct, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Fagan, do you second the amendment?
Yeah, I second that, thank you.
Thank you. Does Council agree to withdraw the amendment? Thank you. Councillor Jones, I believe that you would like to alter the motion. Is that correct?
Yes, Madam Mayor. So the revised motion would read: Sunderland is undergoing significant transformation with ambitious and impressive regeneration plans and projects, truly positioning itself as an up-and-coming, exciting and innovative city to live, work and visit. Council notes that it is essential that Sunderland's transformation extends beyond physical redevelopment and must continue to build on its historic and vibrant cultural identity with arts, heritage and music at its core. Council also recognises the long-term and continuing enthusiasm, creativity, knowledge, commitment and experience of the voluntary sector community organisations who have formed the cultural backbone of our city for so long. It is widely accepted that music, arts and culture bring a multitude of social, health and well-being benefits and can significantly boost economic prosperity, which undoubtedly can improve the lives of our residents and enhance the city's vibrancy and diversity. However, whilst we know talent is everywhere, opportunity is not. Council recognises the fantastic contribution those involved in the music, arts and cultural sector across the city already make day in, day out, and that Sunderland has a unique opportunity to stand in solidarity with artists and lead the way in fostering a thriving cultural scene. This council, therefore, declares its ongoing support for musical, art, artistic and cultural development across the city. We'll continue to educate and advocate for support for our arts, music and cultural sector. Commits to ongoing collaboration with local artists, musicians, cultural organisations and the voluntary community sector organisations, including approaches that will train, retain and return our local talents. We'll continue to support our creative industries through collaborating with local businesses to generate jobs and foster a strong creative economy. Welcomes the Secretary of State for Culture, Media and Sport and Secretary of State for Education's commitments to review the curriculum and put arts, sport and music back at the heart of our schools and communities. Council requests that the Leader of the Council writes to the Secretary of State for Culture, Media and Sport to invite her to Sunderland to see the rich heritage and culture on offer and discuss potential future opportunities for the government to support the music, arts and cultural sector in Sunderland. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Elms, do you agree to the alternate?
Yes, agreed.
Thank you. Does Council agree to the alteration? Thank you. Would anyone like to speak on the altered amendment?
Madam Mayor, through you, we have received prior notice from the following councillors. Councillors Williams, Samuels, Dixon, Mullen, McKeith, Burrell, Dagg, Hunter, Glancy, Newey, Price, Tobin and Tye. And Councillor Elms obviously wants to speak in support of seconding. Councillor Spedding. Councillor Tye, I've got you. Okay. Councillor Truman. Councillor Laws. Councillor Blackburn.
Councillor Elms.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This motion's about creatives.
Councillor Elms, apologies.
Councillor Donkin.
Apologies, Councillor Elms, carry on.
Oh, sorry, thank you, Madam Mayor. This motion's about creatives, poets, rappers and bands. So I'll speak for them today in a way that they understand. Without a change in support, some local artists will quit. So if ever there was a time to make a speech rhyme, then this is it. Do you remember when Sunak told musicians to retrain? Forget all of your skills, find new knowledge to retain. To understand the industry, he didn't try at all. He just shut his eyes and ears and said that you're not viable. An industry once valued for every pound it was worth. But streaming sites have killed grassroots and refused to make it work. You need 30,000 streams to earn what you could from 10 CDs, leaving local artists hungry while the corporate giant feasts. Look at Kate Nash, now selling images online because she can't afford to tour. That's how the system's been designed. And Brexit's taken work from many artists in our city. With red tape and visas, European touring isn't pretty. A local company that does business in our city lost contracts overseas all because of bureaucracy. Work stolen from our artists, a massive atrocity. Opportunity won't show its face, so our artists just up and leave. The bookers moved to Ireland to keep access to the market, hiring bands from the EU, so Sunderland's artists disregarded. Our artists getting punished for what David Cameron started. Now he's in the House of Lords while our artists are out here starving. I spoke to managers and artists to ask them what they need. What can council do to make this scene really succeed? And the response was humble, polite and not obscene, but showed Sunderland is not a place that they believe they can achieve. They said we need spaces and places to train, the ability to record so we can all make our names, venues we can afford as a place where we can perform, and the ability to apply so our bids don't all get ignored. Simplify funding, allow video submissions. You can't see passion or vision on something that's only written. These people are musicians, not linguists or statisticians, so let's simplify the process so creatives get commissioned. Labour's here to rebuild what the Tories let decay. 14 years of neglect, so now we're paving the way. This motion's about solutions, not just patching the cracks, building the foundations to bring Sunderland back. We'll protect our venues, advocate for fair pay. We'll create jobs in the arts so our artists can get paid. Creativity in schools from the very first day, and teach every kid that Sunderland's a place that you can stay. A place you can achieve your dreams because they don't want your pity. After all, Sunderland is a music city. We need to invest, help grassroots to progress, not just claim a victory when they celebrate their success. All of your favourite artists started as a starving artist, then they charted. We think they're ours, but off to London they're departing. Council, let's send a message today. We support our local artists. Let's offer some praise. Let's applaud the work they do, no political games, and pass this motion unopposed. We've all got mutual aims. Let's see our city flourish. It really could be the greatest with our 5-year strategy and our new music city status. Because after Brexit and COVID, life for artists is kind of tough. So let's put art back at the heart of the city that we love. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Wow, thank you, Councillor Ems. I'm certainly not going to follow that by rapping or any music, and I'm certainly not going to sing, but thank you so much for your contribution there. Councillor Williams, if you'd like to speak. In the form of country and western.
For me. Anyway, thank you, Madam Mayor. Can't do that, can't sing, can't dance either. So, actually, colleagues, I really do welcome this notice of motion. I can absolutely confirm that health and well-being benefits do come from being creative. When people say they exercise and get endorphins from that, it actually makes me feel rubbish. I can attest to makes me feel hassled, stressed and horrible. I'm actually quite clumsy. I've got no sense of spatial awareness, and for me it's just awkward. But I absolutely love being creative. I make cards, I decorate cakes, I make garments, teddies, brooches, and I love it. A couple of hours away from whatever's boring. In fact, I think after tonight I might need to go home and make some cards just to calm us down. I absolutely love it. And you get something tangible out of it. I also think when you're creative, you have memories in that creativity as well. I recently made a single-size quilt for my granddaughter, and it's made out of 30 pieces of her clothes, which are all put together. So I'll not be around in the next 20 years, so hopefully she'll remember what was put into that, what she wore, and how I made it for her. We have many thousands of people across the city who do stuff like that. They're in natter groups, there are creativity sessions where I live in Lambton, there's a hub nearby. they do crochet, they do painting, all sorts of things like that. And it's a social activity as well. In my role as Chair of Governors, I'm so proud that as part of the previous Labour government, we became a specialist visual and performing arts school. We were also fortunate at the same time that we got BSF funding. That allowed us to provide amazing facilities for our young people. All down to previous Labour government, I am looking forward to seeing what this government are looking at providing for our schools. We have a recording studio, we have fantastic musical opportunities, we have an amazing theatre space, fabulous dance studio, too many mirrors in there for me, kids love it, brilliant art rooms, and those facilities together with our amazing staff offer opportunities for our young people to explore their creativity. Over the last 20 years, other places have reduced their creative offer, whereas we've maintained and grown ours. We've added things like photography and digital art as time's gone on. When I look at the standard of work that some of our young people do, it's amazing. I actually have at our annual award ceremony, I have an award named after me for the most improved DT. So the Linda Williams Award for the most improved DT student in Year 10. I'm so proud of that. In that role, I interview young people as part of our careers programme. I always encourage them to do something creative, to get away, to relax and simply enjoy something. During the time, I've met some amazing singers, artists, actors. One of our young ladies was in Vera not so long ago. Footballers, swimmers, chefs, and whatever your academic ability is, whether you predicted grade 9s or grade 1s, that isn't a direct link to your creative talent, which is why I always say to them at whatever point, find something you love and do it. It'll help balance your life. So let's celebrate and recognise what we can all contribute to our strong mental health by finding what we enjoy. It's not always about being the best, but it's about being your own best. So some people draw a stick man, some people can be a money. It doesn't matter, do it. I hope we can all support this notice of motion and find our own internal talent and creativity within there. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. In the interests of time, I'm looking to bring in Councillor Samuels, then Dixon, Councillor Mullen, and then Councillor Donkin, and then the right to reply from Councillor Jones. Thank you. Councillor Samuels.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's a pleasure to speak today, celebrating the remarkable impact of art and culture in Sunderland. And I want to reflect a bit on the extraordinary efforts of our community in Southwick. So from Creative Seeds, Carnival Arts and Dance to Sunderland Reach, delivering art and history workshops, we've got a wealth of groups making a difference in Southwick and the wider city. But today I want to speak about a particular success story. For many of us, Southwick Green's more than just a piece of land. It's been the beating heart of our community for generations, a place where people have gathered, celebrated and connected with one another. And maintaining a place like that takes more than just time, it takes community spirit and people dedicated to doing that, and that's where Southwick Village Green Preservation Society come into it. So with unwavering commitment, these volunteers, led by a local historian, Peter Gibson, have worked tirelessly to help transform Southwick Green into a vibrant, welcoming place that celebrates our local heritage. They've spent countless hours planting flowers, creating an atmosphere of inclusion and social activities. They've done that in partnership, supported by our Labour Council's SARA project, and they've rekindled a deep sense of pride and ownership. They've now won many Northumbria in Bloom awards and grown not only flowers, but in a number of volunteers interested in socialising, gardening and celebrating the rich history of Southwick through research and information. This is just an example that the work being done on Southwick Green is a shining example of what heritage and culture can do for a place. It shows that preserving our local environment isn't just about aesthetics, it's about creating a space that brings people together fosters pride and strengthens cultural identity. So to the volunteers of Southwick Village Green, Preservation Society and all of our excellent cultural ambassadors, I want to extend my deepest gratitude. It's been a privilege to support them as their ward councillor. But Madam Mayor, this council, and I think this ties in quite nicely with Councillor Williams, what Councillor Williams had to say, that I want us to remember that culture is about more than just bright lights, theatre, arts and music. It's about recognising that small C culture is very important in our communities and that we need to harness that as much as we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dixon.
Thanks very much, Madam Mayor. This motion's quite timely as it was a subject that was discussed at last week's Economic Prosperity Scrutiny meeting. And we had along the new Chief Executive of Sunderland Culture, Senior Council Officer and Councillor Jones as a portfolio holder. And there was plenty of questions from elected members such as myself. I'm going to kind of relate to people who are kind of not really mentioned in this motion, but who come under the auspices of culture. But I would like to say, in slight criticism of Councillor Jones, is that culture did not begin when the Labour Party was elected earlier this year. Indeed, she's doing her colleagues from the past a disservice, experienced councillors from the Labour group who work very, very hard in the sphere of culture in Sunderland and usually on a cross-party basis. So I think we've got to acknowledge that that was done before the present cabinet was formed. And we don't seem to be sort of looking at some of the things that Councillor Donkin was alluding to in his amendment, because the culture of this city have had its flag bearers through the hundreds of people who've either done in the past or continue to do in the present, organise and oversee the many clubs that form the backbone of our story. And these are people who cover reading, history, film, theatre, including the royalty, flowers, art, dance, keep fit, heritage, meditation, debate, design, maritime, and many more besides, plus the countless sports clubs that play in the city. And of course you can add the Sunderland Antiquarian Society, the local historians, and their vast breadth of work. So I suggest the portfolio holder, who sounds a very positive person, and Sunderland Culture get out to meet as many people as possible within these groups, or the people who run them. And I also raised at the Scrutiny Committee meeting that there should be a greater active involvement with the various communities that have made Sunderland their homes over the last few years, such as the Hindu, the Sikh, the Muslim, and the most recent arrivals from West Africa. After the events in the summer, these relationships need to be the subject of close attention, and an open door policy along the lines of come and see us from the council is not good enough. Again, portfolio holder, Sunderland Culture, with the help of all councillors, should be getting out to meet these people so they can showcase, for example, as we're talking about culture, song, dance, music, and interest in sport. Now, Peter Wood has had a rough time today with wearing an anorak from Dominic. So I'm now going to wear my anorak, and this shows that culture in Sunderland on the music scene has been around a long, long time, because there was an unbelievable period between 1969 and 1973. And there's going to be a few of you at the back there who know what I'm talking about, when rock groups appeared in at either the Bay Hotel on the seafront, the Locarno on Newcastle Road, or the top-ranked suite at Park Lane, better known to some like me as the Rink. So here we go. These are the people who appeared in Sunderland. Thank you, Councillor Price. The Kinks, Queen, Pink Floyd, Genesis, David Bowie, ELO, Jethro Tull, Status Quo, Led Zeppelin, and on the same bill, Deep Purple and Free. Now, if there's any of the younger councillors having a clue what I'm talking about, then I suggest go home and do a little bit of homework. And this was This was the work of a gentleman called Jeff Doherty at the Bay Hotel and at the Locarno, and he was instrumental in promoting a lot of these bands and concerts. But this is an important part. The price of a ticket to see The Who at the Locarno in 1969 was 12 and 6, which is roughly 65p. Now, there's an important side to this because as a council, if we're going to ensure that people with low incomes are going to see what Sunderland has to offer musically at the highest level, then every effort has to be made, if these partnerships with major cultural outlets are to be meaningful, to ensure ticket prices are on offer at affordable rates with discounts for certain nights and half price for young children. And it would be nice and welcome too if some of the drinks were not so expensive.
Councillor Dixon, we're
Is
out
that
of
it?
time.
Well, do you mind? I've had a sore throat. Could you give me 30 seconds? Thank you very much. I would, however, like to just come up to date and say how we clearly are happy with the success story in the fire station, with the Mac Trust, the news about the Sunderland, the Music City, part of the Music Cities network. This is a very popular venue, the fire station. There's lots of people I know are going. I'm there in a couple of weeks to see a brilliant guitarist from Holland. And as far as I'm concerned, this is a positive story, along with the Crown Studios and also the Culture House. And I'm happy to support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dixon, and I'm far too young to remember those days. Councillor Mullen.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. As Michael has just outlined, the Conservative Group strongly supports the motion and, in general, music, arts and culture in the city. At ward level, I've frequently provided community chest to Theatre Space North East to put on performances of Shakespeare in the Park, and more recently to help local students from Barnes Ward attend the Globe in Stratford-on-Avon. And of course, just a few months ago, as was referenced earlier in the meeting, I photographed the then Arts Minister playing guitar in the bunker with Councillor Reid on drums. Incidentally, Stephen's visit wasn't to announce new funding, it was to announce that glassmaker at Roker was being listed as a UNESCO protected cultural practice. But I do think there are some things that we need to consider in terms of where the council hasn't been successful on culture. An arena on the Crow Tree site that was announced as a huge Labour success, big graphics made about it, and then quietly scrapped. The constant cancellation of the Lamplight Festival, scrapping of the air show, the failure to repair the bandstand in Roker Park, the internationally humiliating headlines relating to the triathlon, the under-resourcing of pitches identified by a report published by the council, a literary festival that was overshadowed by Durham's and then dropped, an unclear future for glass manufacturing in Roker, no promotion of the Waves Festival, a smart city that can't keep the live feed working, an art collection that nobody's allowed to know about, see or ask about, severe delays to the repair of Roker Pier, the only council in the country to publicly subsidise the Spice Girls, the delay to opening a padel tennis court at a council-owned facility, which took so long it was outpaced by a privately funded full-scale padel centre, paid for by the private sector, no clear vision or definition of the purpose of Culture House beyond it being the new old library, the coast-to-coast route is littered with penises all over the signage, museum installations which are so old that they themselves are worthy of being put in a museum, and all of that, Madam Mayor, is to say nothing of the closure of Sinatra's. We welcomed the £5 million announced by the Culture Secretary last week, and we do so without the caveats that Labour friends used to apply when the previous government was giving money to Sunderland. But we do have to recognise it is a small amount, and that there are questions still to be answered around the glass centre and the future of glass manufacturing in Roker. When I refer to the glass centre, I mean the site, not the new development. But for me, the most sinister part of this motion is the reference to our current Education Secretary, without a doubt the worst in my lifetime, and rightly deserving of the designation given to her by the Times newspaper as the worst minister in this government. Her policies amount to nothing more than bitter, petty class war politics, the unedifying sight of a government minister who holds such obvious contempt that she has removed halfway through the academic year a GCSE qualification that taught children about the culture and legacy of the classic world whilst they were mid-study is just totally disgraceful. So whilst the Conservative group supports the motion, in spite of the list that I've just read out, we don't accept that the Education Secretary can add anything to culture in the city.
Thank you. Councillor Duncan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. When Councillor Elms made that quite remarkable speech, I was sorely tempted to come back with it and say, I'm here, I'm going to do that. But I'm going to stop because I feel the purpose of my motion, my amendment today, was to make sure that the voluntary sector, particularly those grassroots organisations, get the support they need in contributing to the growth of this community and this city. We have something in the region, one of our local funding organisations estimates at around 500 voluntary sector organisations in the city, all doing different things, but all dipping into that culture and heritage and history. Yet as a council, we don't do enough to support those organisations. So if we look at the amount of money that was distributed to the voluntary sector on the council's website, we see that a laudable 2.1 million was distributed during 23-24, but that 52% of that went to just 10 organisations. So we need to broaden out how we support those other organisations and how we get them to contribute. Because the top and bottom is that if we're going to have a cultural thriving city and we're going to do all the things that you talked about, then more of those voluntary sector organisations need to be involved and need to be supported to do that. I think, Madam Mayor, I've cut out so many bits of my speech that I'm going to stop. But other than to say, picking up on the point that my colleague behind said, in terms of the Glass Centre, there have been several rumours that have gone around that the Glass Centre is being moved. That's going to happen, we know that, to the city. And a picture was shown on Facebook of Sunnyside. But my understanding is that the Glass Centre is going to be moved to the Peter Smith building, which sits on Borough Road, on Villiers Street and on Nile Street, sorry. And that was an agreement, a contract between Theatre Space North East to host that. They would hold that, and they still don't know to this day what's going to happen. So I'd welcome from yourself some clarification on whether the Glass Centre is going to be on that site and what's going to happen to support Theatre Space North East, who entered into a contract, UKSPF contract, on the 29th of May with Sunderland Council. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Jones, you have the right of reply.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So once again, united motion in Chamber tonight, which I think really reflects that we all value the contribution that music, arts and culture make towards the city. Councillor Williams, thank you so much for giving an overview about the impact of culture and arts on health and well-being, and also in the school that you're involved with. Councillor Samuels, thank you for speaking about Southwick Village Green Preservation Society and volunteering and heritage projects. I can assure you that for us, the small C in culture and the small M in music is just as important as the big C in the big M. Councillor Dixon, I can assure you that an awful lot of community engagement is being undertaken and is being planned going forward so that we can engage, as you mentioned, with some of the groups across the city itself. I don't think you'll be able to argue that under this Labour group, regardless of who's been in Cabinet, that amazing work has been taken, undertaken over a multitude of years, despite the challenges that were encountered under your government. Councillor Mullen, Mood Hoover personified. I really think, you know, perhaps, and just perhaps, that if you and other colleagues start changing your mindset and stop incessantly moaning and focusing on the negatives, which, you know, seem to be reducing by the day under this government, that we can, you know, think in possibilities about the city and make it the best place to live, work and visit. You know, surely thinking about the positives are integral to restoring our civic pride, especially after the events last summer. So, welcome further conversations with you, if you want to kind of engage in realistic, pragmatic, solution-focused, problem-solving discussions rather than just thinking about Christmas past. You know, Councillor Arms, thank you so much for your contribution. Your poem was just a true testimony that if we cut you in half, you are music through and through, and it's a pleasure to work with you, and I look forward to working with you as kind of we fulfil our plans going forward. So with that, I think I'll just bring things to a close for the night. Obviously, we had Councillor Donkin with your speech this evening. I'm not sure whether you should have declared some conflict of interests at the start of meeting tonight, but I'll leave you to reflect on that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Madam Mayor, can I seek personal clarification? I work in the voluntary sector for something in the region of 380 different organisations. How do I have a conflict of interest in asking a question about one of those organisations?
Thank you. We will now move to the vote on the motion as altered. Do we want an electronic vote, or are we in agreement? Thank you. That concludes the meeting for this evening.